Welcome to 100 Yards of Football this evening. We have a special segment as we're going to recap the Atlanta Falcons football season 2020. If you like the video today, please come in and share it. And today I got two special guests that's joining me that's know all about the Atlanta Falcons. The first gentleman I'll bring up, he's the voice of the pregame and postgame show for the Atlanta Falcons on 92.9, the most powerful station in the Southeast, the very talented Chris Goforth. And the other gentleman that's going to be joining me, he played 12 years with the Atlanta Falcons, 12-year vet. That's a long time to play in the National Football League. And he was a two-time All-American at Florida State University. He got that thing going down in Tallahassee. When he left, the Florida State program was in the top 5. The very talented, the legend, Mr. Bobby Butler. So if you like the video today, please comment and share it here on 100 Yards Football. So I'm going to start with Mr. Goforth, who knows all about the Falcons. You know how we do it here on 100 Yards of Football. I'm going to ask you one question, Mr. Goforth, and then Bobby Butler is going to come in after you. Basically, let's talk about the Falcons 20 season. The most positive aspect you take from the Atlanta Falcons this year, Mr. Chris?
Let's see. If we're going to go positive, how about the emergence of Foye Oluokun at linebacker? I mean, I think that guy's played really, really well this year, replacing Devondre Campbell. I don't think there's been any drop-off at all. And if you saw the game yesterday against the Chiefs, he had the interception at the goal line and a 50-yard return. Somebody needs to learn how to block for that guy downfield so he didn't get caught from behind. But again, I think the way Foye Oluokun has played has been great. Younghoe Koo has been tremendous as a kicker. I know he missed one yesterday that could have put it into overtime, but he's been tremendous there. There have been some positives. You know, Grady Jarrett's playing like a grown man out there on that defensive line, and he's playing like the Pro Bowler that he is. So there's been some positives. I think anybody that had any questions at all about Calvin Ridley and whether or not he could be a number one receiver, I think those questions have been answered. And Bobby, a guy down there playing your old position at corner in A.J. Terrell, a rookie out of Clemson. If you look at the analytics that Pro Football Focus puts out, I think he is the top-rated defensive rookie in the NFL this year. He's, look, He did a good job yesterday against Tyreek Hill. I know people want to talk about, the dropped interception in the end zone and all that, but I think he's had a really strong showing for a rookie. So there's some positives in this. Not many, granted, not a lot, but there's been a few positives this year for the Falcons.
Mr. Butler?
Well, Chris, I agree with you 100%, man. Of course, A.J. Terrell is my guy. Before the Falcons drafted him, Vincent can tell you he was high on my list.
Yes, he was.
And I just like the guy. I think he's a gamer. I like his, he's a slender build kind of a guy, like I was. He's got great cover skills, but he'll come up and hit you, And so I've always liked him. He's had a great year. But, one of the things I want to say, when you look at the Falcons from a defensive standpoint, overall, we need help. When you after Grady, after Forsay, after Deion Jones, and after our rookie, we need help. And I like Neal. I like him in the secondary. I like our secondary, but here's the thing: the best pass defense is heat in the kitchen, Chris. You know what I'm talking about? If you got them guys up front pushing and putting guys on their butts like we want. Hey, man, anybody can play in the secondary, right? So I think we need to add some rush, some heat up front in our defensive interior. From an offensive standpoint, Calvin Ridley, what can you say, man? The guy's a monster, right? Well, and, when Julio's healthy, man, we got two monsters on the field at one time. So who do you defend, right? And so Matt Ryan's had his, bit of, guys he can throw the ball to. Gage, all those guys are pretty good. I even like our tight end. And so I think on both sides of the ball, we need to beef up our interior, our front line, our defensive line, our offensive line, because from an offensive standpoint, we got players. From a defensive standpoint, we got a few guys. We need to put more heat in the kitchen.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about it, Bobby. I mean, you're paying Dante Fowler $16 million to do what exactly?
Exactly.
He hadn't done anything yet.
That's true.
Second question of the evening. Head coaches that'll be at the top of your list, Chris.
How about the news about Urban Meyer willing to talk to some NFL teams? That's interesting. The guy that and Vince, I think you and I talked about this before when I was on with you. The two guys that I still come back around to, and Bobby, I really want to hear as a former player, I want to hear your thoughts on this. But Eric Bieniemy is going to be the guy still. That offense didn't look all that good yesterday for him, but I still think Eric Bieniemy, the Chiefs' offensive coordinator, is going to be a guy that's going to still get a lot of attention. The other guy that I find intriguing is Arthur Smith, who I think has done a very good job with the Titans in that power running game that they have put together. Now, I think it helps when you've got Pat Mahomes and you got a Derrick Henry, but I think those are two guys that a lot of people are going to want to talk to this offseason. I would expect those guys to be on the Falcons list as well.
Bobby?
Well, I tell you, here's the question. With Eric Bieniemy, he may come with a package deal. I mean, we may get John Dorsey come in as a general manager. And here's the thing with me, Chris, right? I'm an old guy, right? I'm an old school guy. I played 12 years with the Falcons. I've seen some things. If you can't get the head coach and the general manager on the same page, you're going to have problems.
Yep.
You're going to have major problems. And so these guys come from that Kansas City Chiefs tree, right? They've had success there. I think they'll go to bat for each other because at the end of the day, Chris, we start playing ball as kids, right? On the street, who picked the teams? The two captains, right?
That's right.
My mom don't come out of the house and pick my team for me. My Uncle Joe don't come out of his house and pick my team for me, right? So it's the two captains that selected. So if I'm the head coach, I want to be able to pick my talent. I need my scouting department to do their job. But for my system and for my scheme, I want to have some kind of say-so in who comes to Atlanta or the team in the draft.
What was the old Bill Parcells line that he said he told Jerry Jones, if you want me to cook the meal, you got to let me buy the groceries?
There you go.
So, yeah.
And there it is. And look at a great coach, as good of a coach as he was, look what happened to him in Dallas.
Yeah. It didn't work. He couldn't get the owner out of the way.
It didn't work.
Yeah.
So, I'm hearing rumors and stuff. Louis Riddick, as far as the general manager, he was a former Falcon. Matter of fact, we were on the same team together the end of my career. And so, he's been paying his dues. But I like to see a general manager and a head coach that can partner together and be on the same page come to Atlanta. And let's get this thing done.
Bobby, how much of a – I don't want to call this a negative per se, but how much do you think it factors in that, let's say, a guy like Eric Bieniemy, would he be willing to come to Atlanta where he's going to inherit Matt Ryan for the next 2 years, who may not necessarily be the quarterback that he wants for what he wants to do?
Right. I'm with you. You got to consider all that. But at the end of the day, right, you don't want to come in starting from scratch. Matt has had a great career and still playing well. To me, the formula is, just like you were talking about running the ball, if we can get more of a balance in our offense, Matt can win games. He can win games. He's got the horses outside on the perimeter that can help him do that. But yet and still, we need to get that front line going. We need to get that push going. We need to run the ball a little bit more than what we're doing right now.
Okay, gentlemen, when you look at the draft right now, the Falcons are coming in. I believe they have the 5th pick in the 2021 draft. Granted, if they beat Tampa Bay on next Sunday, they'll fall down in the draft. So I'm assuming Tampa Bay is going to win that football game on Sunday. Can we all agree to that? They'll be a happy favorite.
You know what? I'm not going to agree to that. We're going to win every game we play. But in case that happens, let's go with that. All right.
Okay, just in case that happens, the Atlanta Falcons, in a undeniable way, lose on Sunday, they will have either the 3rd or 5th pick in the draft. So I'm going to ask both of you gentlemen, what will be some of the Falcons' draft needs going into 2021 to make them a better football team? Start with you, Mr. Chris.
Well, I think when you're talking about at that point, that would make them 4-12. I think when you're a 4-12 football team, you got a lot of needs, right, going into this. And look, Bobby, if you've got a chance to be in the top 5, all right, you've got a chance to be able to pick up a guy that can can transform your organization maybe. And I think, look, I'm a Matt Ryan fan. I like Matt. I love what he's done for the organization, and he's been a very productive, I would even say, largely an underappreciated guy in this league. But I also take a look at what happened at other places. Pat Mahomes sat for a year in Kansas City. Aaron Rodgers sat for a couple of years in Green Bay.
Right.
I think now, if you've got a chance to pick in the top 5, given as deep as this quarterback class is, I think you got to look long and hard about the possibility of taking a quarterback and understanding this guy's going to sit for a year, probably 2 years, until Matt finishes up, and then he becomes your guy.
Right. Well, I like that. I think it is time to draft a quarterback. I don't know if I would take one in the top 5 unless I can get Sunshine. If Sunshine's not available, I don't want him. That high of a pick. There's some great picks like Russell Wilson, in the 3rd round, like a Joe Montana in the 3rd round, a Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round. There's some guys that, could possibly, be of value at those spots as opposed to spending a lot of money if it's not Sunshine. Sunshine's my guy.
And I say all that, guys, with the full knowledge that, as Bobby's mentioned already, they got to have a pass rush, and they don't. And you got to find a guy. I just don't know if this draft, I don't know that you've really got that defensive end that's going to be worth a top 5 pick.
Right.
Or that, as they call them now, edge guys. I don't know that you've got an edge guy that's going to be worth a top 5 pick. So with that being said, I feel like, maybe this would be the year, if you can get that game changer at quarterback, to go ahead and get him and have that guy ready to roll in 2 years.
I think when you look at it, I think Matt Ryan, what will he cost next year against the cap? About $40 million?
It's a lot. It's a lot.
I think if they didn't go with a quarterback, and granted, I think the next need for me would be a defensive end or a guy that can come off the edge. I'm going to tell you, gentlemen, my man, I like the man out of Penn State, Michael Parsons. I think he's the best defensive prospect and came in this draft since Luke Kuechly. I like where he came. He played 2 years at Penn State. You look at the linebacker tradition there, LeVar Arrington, Jack Ham, Greg Butler. But what I like about the young man, if you look at his film, he's got NBA jumping ability. He's got that sprinter speed, 4.45. Then look at the production, 191 tackles. You put him with Deion Jones and the young man you mentioned, Chris, you talking about a Chicago Bears 1985 type defense. They had Otis Wilson, Mike Singletary, Wilbur Marshall. And then, I'm not lying, look at the game film. Go back to the 2019 Cotton Bowl against the University of Memphis. 14 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 pass defense, a quarterback hurry that led to an interception for a touchdown. I just like the man whole makeup. And when you look at overall, he's a guy that's got pure instinct, and I just like a lot about him. He started out at Penn State as a defensive end. But when you talk about that young man, and think about this, you can go and look at history. He's got that Robert Bazile. Remember him out of Houston? He's got that Wilbur Marshall out of Chicago. And I'm not saying, because I don't want to start nothing here on 100 yards football, but he's got that rushing ability as a young man by the name, I think, LT. He went to North Carolina. I think his career went real well in New York. And the other young man that was down that road tide named Derek Thomas. If I'm the Falcons, he's saying number 5, he's an impact player. He can do it all. Coverage linebacker, he can rush the pass, and that'll be my man, Michael Parsons.
Bobby Vince is wanting to bring back the old Grits Blitz that you played with. That's what he wants.
Hey, man, that's how the game is, man. We got to pay homage to the old players, man.
Well, Chris, I tell you one thing: the Grits Blitz is a linebacker, safety type, sacking the quarterback. I want to have on my team, on my defensive line, my front 4, the guys who got their hands in the dirt. I want to see them be able to put the quarterback on the ground just with those guys, as opposed to blitzing every down. Because you and I both know, if you're blitzing every down, sooner or later, if you're blitzing on 3rd and 19, Chris, It don't work.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, you got to be able to get or ideally, you want to get pressure and not have to bring additional guys.
Absolutely.
That way, it doesn't have to affect the back end
Yes.
too much. So, yeah, no, I get you, and I see exactly where you're coming from with it, and I think that's ideal. And you know, as we know, guys, it's a quarterback-driven league. You better have one, and you better be able to get one on the ground.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's all about now.
That's right.
Let's talk about some of the players before we move in our two final topics of the evening. You talked about Kevin Ridley, Chris. I think he had an outstanding year. AJ Terrell. Talk about some other players that stuck out to you that's got promise leading up to the Falcons over the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, those are the two guys that Calvin Ridley is, I think he's bona fide. He can be a number one receiver. Bobby mentioned Russell Gage earlier. I think Russell Gage in the slot has been really, really good. I mean, on third down this year, especially early in the year, he was just unstoppable. Whenever the Falcons needed a third down, he was the guy. Yeah. So those have been, two guys at wide receiver. Hayden Hurst has had, I wish we saw more of Hayden Hurst at tight end. He's been really good. The offensive line, to me, I think Lindstrom and McGarry have been okay for their second years, but I still think you want to see those guys take another step forward in year 3 in the league. The running back position as a whole has been a disappointment. I don't think any of those guys other than Ito Smith will be back, and I think the only reason why Ito Smith is back is because he's under contract for next year. But I think that running back room will look completely different. Defensive side of the ball, how about Jacob Tuodi Mariner, one of the defensive tackles, a guy that, he was one of those like fringe players. Will he or won't he make the roster back in August? And I think the Falcons have learned that he's a guy that can play a little bit. Michael Walker, another rookie linebacker who can run and has done pretty well this year in coverage. He's been another guy that has kind of stood out. There's pieces there for the Falcons. And I think when you talk about guys like Julio and Ridley and Matt Ryan on one side of the ball and Grady and Dion and Foye Oluokun and AJ Terrell on the opposite side, you've got pieces to be able to build around. You just don't have enough of those pieces.
Right. And Chris, it's something too, especially when you talk about offensive players. I got a saying that wide receivers and running backs are a dime a dozen. I don't think we have to spend the farm to get them. I mean, just think about it. Guys that you never heard of can come outside and play receiver and have great years and play well. I don't think we have to spend a lot of money to get those guys, but there are some places where we're going to have to make some great investments to make this thing happen. And I love Julio. He came out the same year my son came out of high school. I've been following Julio since 2008, basically, and I love him. I think he deserved to have the contract that they have right now. But at the end of the day, he's not giving me enough minutes for us to afford that kind of a contract. And we got Ridley. I mean, we got guys out there, and so they're a dime a dozen. So I like to see us invest some of that money up front, and like you say, look in the future behind the center as well, and build this thing.
Yeah, you mentioned guys being a dime a dozen now. It's amazing, Bobby, going back to your days as a player when you had to have that stud running back. You had to have Walter. You had to have Tony Dorsett. You had to have William Andrews or Gerald Riggs back there. It's those guys now, they're almost treated like kind of the way we treat laptop computers now. You just use them up, and after 3 or 4 years, you throw it away and you go get another guy. Yeah.
And then it's almost a job by committee now with most teams. Yeah. But I tell you one thing, that formula still works. And, you want to know about the success of the Baltimore Ravens? They run the football, right? And so that formula still works. And you wear a defense down. If you can consistently run the football, pound the ball, at the end of the game, that defense that you're playing against won't be the same.
Okay, gentlemen. We got 2 final questions for the evening. We're going to switch over to college football. As y'all know, the 2 biggest games of the day during the college football season are going to take place on Friday, January the 1st. I'm going to start with you, Chris, as we're going to preview Clemson and Ohio State. Who you taking and why your team is going to win that football game? Clemson. in the Ohio State Buckeyes?
Yeah, I like Clemson, guys, for a lot of reasons. I think one, look, what do we really know about Ohio State, and how much of an advantage is it for them to having not have played as many games as Clemson has? I think, yeah, they're going to be a little fresher, but I also think there's something about having enough game reps at this point in time in the year. I think Brent Venables, their defensive coordinator, will do a great job of showing a lot of different looks to Justin Fields, who has struggled some this year when he's gone up against really good defenses. And I don't think there is anybody better right now in college football at giving you those pre-snap looks to confuse the quarterback than Brent Venables is. So that's the reason why I like Clemson in this. Plus, we're getting salty Dabo right now. I mean, this guy, he's got a little salty here the last couple of weeks, Bobby. I think salty Dabo is good for college football.
Oh, absolutely. But I tell you, Chris, I got to go with Clemson as well. And the reason I'm going with them is just real simple. Sunshine. I love sunshine. And so I think the guy's the best quarterback in the nation. To me, he's the best quarterback to come out for years. I mean, I know we talk about these guys who came out last year, but I promise you, Sunshine is the one, right? And so I think Clemson, we talk about from a defensive standpoint, Coach Venables over there, what he's doing and what he can do with guys is just incredible. I think from an offensive standpoint, with the quarterback and the running back, it's Clemson's thing to win. I think it's their year to win it all.
And I'm going to break the tie. I know both of your gentlemen knows football at a high level, but I'm going to tell you this. I think it's going to be a real close football game, but I think we haven't seen the best of the Ohio State Buckeyes. One thing, they had 22 players out against Northwestern in their toughest game in the Big Ten championship. They had 20 players out against Indiana. I think they're going to be real fresh. I think the biggest key, they only played 6 games. Granted, Justin Fields has struggled, but he's going to have his full arsenal when it comes to the game on Saturday. Don't get me wrong. Trevor Lawrence, to me, will be still the best player on the field, but I think Justin Fields has been listened to. He's regressed. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have been killing him in the media. And think about this. He's from the same areas of Trevor Lawrence. So, people got to be talking. And a lot of people have been hard on Ohio State. Dabo Swinney, even though he's been salty, Chris, but you don't want to give the Buckeyes a lot of bulletin board material. Yes, and think about this. Ryan Day and the Buckeyes haven't said nothing. They've been real quiet. But I think it's going to be a close football game, but I think Ohio State is going to show up. Now, Notre Dame and Alabama. Chris.
Guys, I've said this all year, and there for a while they made me kind of look stupid, but I just don't think Notre Dame has enough firepower to be able to run with these guys. Who's going to stop Alabama? I don't think anybody can. I mean, they look like they're playing 7-on-7 out there. I don't know. This is as good of an offense. I thought the Tua offenses at Alabama were good. I'm not so sure this isn't the best offense. I just don't think Notre Dame can score enough, Bobby, to be able to stay in this one.
Well, I totally agree. I think, Alabama is just so impressive, man. It's just year in, year out, the kind of players that they're recruiting there and the kind of players that Coach Saban is able to secure. It's just amazing. These guys are all Sunday players, right? And so, that you get them to go, they graduate, they get drafted, and then the next year they have this phenomenal, freshman recruiting class that's coming in. It's just like, man, don't it stop? Can we get Coach Bowden in the booth or something so we can kind of divert some of that talent down to Tallahassee just a little bit, to get things turned around and make it fair in the South? But I tell you, man, I'm with you. Alabama is so strong, man. They are impressive. Florida gave them a good game the other night. Alabama jumped out, but Florida came and played the second half. It was kind of interesting. But I don't think anybody else can stand up to Alabama.
The way you're going to beat Alabama this year is you got to be able to outscore them. And I just don't know if Notre Dame can do that. I mean, it took 52 points or 53 points it would have taken to beat them in the SEC championship game. I just don't know that you can. I don't see Notre Dame putting up 50.
Right, exactly.
And that's what I think it's going to take to win.
Granted, I don't want to break the tie, but Alabama's a powerful football team. There's no question about it. Like you just said, Chris, they might be the best offense that's stepped in college football. Been very impressed with Mac Jones. Let me say this. When Tua left last year, I didn't think the production would go at a high level, but I think he's been the best player to the offense because he's been very accurate in throwing the deep ball. He's one of the best I've ever seen doing at this level. I think the only way, touchdown Jesus, that's what I call him in Notre Dame. Nuke Rockland, bless you, sir. The only way that Notre Dame can win this football game is run the football and control the clock behind a big offensive line that's got at least three NFL draft picks. I think Ian Book is going to be a very big key. No turnovers, and whether or not Chris Williams can go over 100 yards. Controlling the clock. Because the only way, you're right, Chris and Bobby, they're not going to outscore them. It's almost going to remind me, remember back in the day, that Super Bowl, I believe, in 1991, when the New York Giants came in and the Buffalo Bills were scoring auto points with Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Andre Reed. They had the highest scoring offense in the league. But what did New York do that game? The Giants. They controlled the ball with a guy that you played with in high school, Bobby, by the name of Otis Anderson, excuse me. They controlled the clock 39 minutes. I think Buffalo had it 19 minutes. Notre Dame has got to have a performance like that. But if not, they get behind. Is what we call back in my hometown, we're in the state of Tennessee, bottom is over. Final words to say to Mr. Goforth, your final words here on 100 Yards of Football this evening.
Man, it's always great to visit with you, Vince, and it's great to be able to hang out with Bobby Butler for a little while. When I was about 10, 11 years old collecting football cards, I got a stack of Bobby Butler football cards in my closet somewhere. I'm going to have to dig them out when this is over, but it's always fun to be on. I hate the Falcons season hasn't gone better than what it was, but I'm optimistic that brighter days are ahead, and man, we're going to have a lot to talk about with this NFL draft coming up in a couple of months.
Bobby, final words.
Well, Chris, I agree with you. I love Arthur Blank, and I think Arthur Blank really wants to get it done. And I think if you got an owner that really wants to get it done, he'll get it done. I mean, we've fallen short a few times. And by the way, this year, guys, even though our record is not good, we've been in every game, pretty much. We've been in every game. Those guys fighting, they scratching, they crawling. So, but I just like we got to bring in the right leader. Right general manager, and we got to recruit to draft and get some guys in free agency to build this thing the way it needs to be built.
Okay, if you like the video this evening, please come in and share it. We've been 100 Yards of Football. Again, I'd like to thank my guest, Mr. Chris Goforth, the best in the business. Pre-game and post-game show, lead host for the Atlanta Falcons on 92.9. And my man, 12-year vet of the Atlanta Falcons, two-time All-American in Florida State, Mr. Bobby Butler. We like to say, have a great evening and be blessed and enjoy the games this weekend on the college level. Go Ohio State, baby.